If you're watching this, you've already seen the cracks. I don't mean the kind that show up in your ceiling after a storm, or the way old websites glitch when the servers are overloaded. I mean the cracks in the world you thought you understood, the gaps where things should be, but aren't. Places where something has been pulled out, scrubbed clean, erased so thoroughly that only a faint outline remains. Some stories don't just get deleted, they get erased, and the people who wrote them vanish too. You think I'm exaggerating. I wish I were, but I know you've noticed it. A thread you swore you bookmarked suddenly 404s. A username you remember posting week after week just gone. Maybe you told yourself it was moderation. Maybe you chalked it up to Reddit being Reddit. But deep down, it stuck with you, didn't it? The itch you couldn't scratch. I shouldn't be recording this. Hell, I shouldn't even be talking about it. But I need you to hear me, because silence is exactly how they win. See, NoSleep used to be my comfort place. A community built on campfire. Fear on telling and retelling stories so real they'd crawl under your skin and nest there. I spent nights scrolling until my phone screen burned into my eyes, whispering, "Just one more story," like a mantra. That's all it was supposed to be, fiction. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. You know the slogan. Everything is true here, even if it's not. Cute, right? But what if some of it was truer than we wanted? What if the wrong story slipped through, something real masquerading as make-believe? What happens then? I'll tell you what happens. It disappears. And so does the person who wrote it. I know how paranoid this sounds. Believe me, I argued with myself for months before saying it out loud. But the pattern is undeniable. Stories vanish, authors vanish, and every trace of them gets scrubbed cleaner than any mod team could ever manage. No archives, no cached versions, nothing but silence where there used to be screams. And here's the part that should keep you up tonight. Some of those missing stories have started leaking back. Not all of them. Just fragments. Glitches in the system, maybe. Or maybe they were never supposed to be gone in the first place. But the fragments mention things they shouldn't. Names, locations, dates that haven't even happened yet. Stay until the end, because one of those stories has come back. And it mentions you. That's the price of listening, of peeking behind the curtain. You can't unhear what I'm about to tell you, and once you've heard it, you're already part of it. The database grows with every curious click, every late-night search, every person who whispers, "I wonder where that post went." I didn't choose this. I stumbled into it, the same way you did. Back then, it was just me, scrolling through the feed one restless night, looking for a scare before bed. I wasn't looking for cracks. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted nostalgia. Comfort in the familiar glow of horror stories typed out by strangers. But comfort doesn't last. It never does. And that night, something was waiting for me between the posts. It always starts the same way. Insomnia, a clock that refuses to move, and the familiar glow of my laptop screen. That night, I told myself I'd just scroll for a few minutes. I'd been meaning to revisit some of the old NoSleep classics, stories I'd read years ago, back when everything felt new, when a stranger's words could make me check under my bed or second-guess the shadows in my hallway. Nostalgia, that's all it was. I thought maybe rereading would be like flipping through a childhood photo album. Familiar, comforting, safe. The first few clicks were exactly that. I found myself smiling at the old tropes. Creepy babysitter, haunted Craigslist ad, the mysterious hitchhiker who somehow knows your name. You've read them too, right? We all have. There's a strange kind of warmth in it, the same way horror movies become background noise once you've memorized the jump scares. I even caught myself muttering commentary under my breath, the way I used to in the comments section. Oh, here it comes. The twist where the narrator was dead all along. It was silly, normal, exactly what I needed to take the edge off the silence pressing in from the rest of my apartment. I might have kept scrolling in that cozy little bubble if my notifications hadn't pinged a DM out of nowhere. I blinked at the username. Not a close friend, just someone I'd traded horror recommendations with months ago. Someone who shouldn't have even known I was online at that hour. Their message was short, almost playful. Don't dig too deep. Some posts aren't supposed to be found. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the punchline, waiting for the wink emoji or a follow-up link to a cursed meme. Nothing came, just the words sitting there, cold and flat on the screen. I typed back, "LOL what?" No response. Not then, not ever. The little green dot by their name blinked out a minute later, and their profile was gone the next morning. Deleted. I told myself it was a joke, someone messing around, but the timing clung to me like static. Still, I kept scrolling, because that's what you do when you can't sleep and you're alone with your thoughts. You go deeper, post after post, story after story. Each one felt like a breadcrumb trail leading me further back into the community's history, back to the golden age of sleepless nights. But nostalgia can only carry you so far. And at some point, I started noticing the gaps. It was small things. At first, a story I remembered loving, gone. Not just deleted, but scrubbed clean, as if it had never existed. I thought maybe my memory was off. Maybe I was mixing it up with another post. But then I found thread numbers that skipped, comment chains that ended abruptly in the middle of a sentence. The archive wasn't flowing the way it should. It was like watching film reel burn in the projector, entire frames missing, conversations collapsing into nothing. And the strangest part? The gaps weren't random. They felt deliberate, like someone had reached into the archive and plucked out specific stories, leaving everything else untouched. Like pulling teeth from a skull and pretending the smile hadn't changed. I tried refreshing. I tried different keywords. But the more I looked, the more I realized how much was missing. Stories that had once racked up thousands of upvotes were gone without a trace. Authors with long histories obliterated. Entire arcs of storytelling swallowed by silence. I thought about the DM again. Don't dig too deep. I wanted to laugh it off. Tell myself it was all paranoia. But my stomach tightened as I scrolled through the empty spaces. I had this gnawing sense that I was poking at something fragile, like pressing my fingers against wallpaper only to feel it give way into hollow air. And then came the glitch. Subtle, almost easy to miss. As I scrolled, the page jumped. Numbers skipped. 1 second I was reading post 3684. and the next, the archive dumped me into 3687. No loading symbol, no lag, just missing pages. When I tried to go back, the button grayed out, like those posts had never been there at all. That was the first time the nostalgia slipped, replaced by unease. It was no longer comfort food, no longer a stroll down memory lane. It felt like someone had slammed a door in my face. At first, I thought maybe it was just a bug. Reddit had gone through redesigns before, archives got messy, links rotted over time. That happens. But the more I looked, the more it felt wrong. Not random, not technical, but intentional. I tried searching for stories I knew everyone used to talk about. The ones that weren't just posts, but events. You remember them too, don't you? The door that only opened if you knocked in threes. The camper who live-streamed his own disappearance. Even the silly one about the guy whose dog kept whispering stock tips. Gone. Not a trace left. No cached versions. No mirror links. No fan. Reposts in the comments. It was like the stories had been carved out, root and branch. Even the usernames that had once belonged to those authors. Profiles inactive, sometimes deleted altogether, sometimes worse. Frozen. Still existing, but with no posts, no comments, no history, as if someone had pressed mute on their entire existence. The strangest thing was the silence around it. No threads complaining about lost posts. No, "Hey, does anyone remember when?" discussions. Just a void. As if I was the only one who remembered they'd been there at all. That's when I got another DM. Different username this time. Different account. But the same eerie weight pressing behind the words, "Stop. Don't look for them." That was it. No context. No explanation. Just those 5 words, delivered like a threat wrapped in a whisper. I stared at the message for a long time. My heart was thudding harder than it should have been. It didn't make sense. Why would strangers go out of their way to tell me not to? What? Browse? Scroll? Read stories? It sounded ridiculous, and yet the timing made it impossible to laugh off. Because when I flipped back to the archive, another story blinked out. I don't mean deleted. I don't mean removed by the moderators. I mean I was looking at it. The text right, there in front of me, and then like a curtain snapping shut, it was gone. The title bar collapsed to empty space. The comments folded in on themselves. I refreshed the page, but the link redirected to nothing. Do you know what it feels like to watch something vanish while you're holding it in your hands? It's not like losing a file or watching a stream buffer. It's personal, intimate. Like the thing you were reading realized you were watching too closely and decided to pull away. I couldn't stop. That's the worst part. The more gaps I found, the more I had to know what had been there. Each missing thread felt like a missing tooth in something alive. And the shape of that something was starting to look monstrous. Scroll deeper, faster, chasing the absences. Stories I half remembered but couldn't place. Names that sparked recognition, but slipped away when I tried to hold them. I had this crawling sense that my own memories were being chewed at, erased in sync with the posts. At one point, I caught myself muttering out loud, "It's eating them." I don't know what it was, but that's how it felt. Like the archive itself was gnawing away at its own history, stripping flesh from bone, leaving only a grin where something human used to be. My DMs pinged again. I almost didn't check. My palms were sweaty against the keyboard, and every instinct screamed that opening it was a mistake. Still, I looked. This time, the message wasn't just a warning. It was a plea. Please, don't let it see you looking. I froze. My throat went dry. Before I could type back, the account vanished. Not just logged out, vanished. Like the first one. I shut the DMs and went back to the archive, but the comfort was gone. Every scroll of my mouse felt dangerous now, like shining a flashlight where something was crouched just out of sight. And then, just when I thought I couldn't push further without losing my mind, one post almost loaded. The title flickered into existence for a moment, long enough for me to read half of it. Then my browser stuttered, froze. The spinning wheel turned. The letters of the title glitched, doubling, warping. For a split second, I thought it spelled my own name. Then the entire tab went white. I slammed the laptop shut so fast it rattled on my desk, but that half title wouldn't leave my head. When I finally reopened the laptop, the screen came back blacker than I expected. It didn't boot to the login screen, didn't even flash the manufacturer logo. Just a dull hum, like the machine was struggling to breathe. Then, as if nothing had happened, the browser restored itself. And there it was. The half-loaded post. At first glance, it looked like any other NoSleep entry. A title in that classic clipped style. Half-sentence, ellipsis, suggestion of menace. But the part that had frozen before, the corrupted section of text, was no longer gibberish. It was my name. I blinked. My stomach turned over. Maybe it was just coincidence, a username match, something pulled from cached data. But the longer I stared, the less it looked like a coincidence. It looked like an address. And then the story began. Hello. You shouldn't be here. Those were the first words, not, "This happened to me last night," or, "I never believed in ghosts until now." Not even a hook about a haunted town or a mysterious neighbor. Just a direct greeting, and it was to me. My skin prickled as I scrolled further. Your chair creaks every time you shift to the left. You think you hide it under the music, but I hear it. The cup on your desk still has coffee stains from this morning. The blinds are half open, just wide enough for someone to look in, but you've never thought about that, have you? I froze. My eyes slid, almost unwillingly, to the cup on my desk. The blinds, the angle of the lamplight. It wasn't describing a scene. It was describing right now, I whispered aloud without meaning to. What the hell is this? My mouse hand hovered, trembling. But I couldn't stop reading. You've been chasing holes, gaps, teeth marks in the archive. You think they belong to someone else, but they don't. They belong to you. Every vanished thread is just another way of pulling you closer, of teaching you how to disappear. The words blurred for a moment. My throat felt dry, as if I'd swallowed dust. This wasn't just a creepy coincidence, some ARG-style prank post. No one could fake the details on my desk, the patterns of my night. No one could know I'd been counting the missing stories. Unless the story was watching me. I slammed the laptop half shut, but curiosity clawed its way back into my chest. I couldn't leave it there. I pulled it open again. The text had changed. Don't look away. You know what happens when you look away. I let out a nervous laugh. Short, sharp, desperate. This had to be some kind of trick. Maybe the browser had glitched. Maybe there was malware involved. But in the corner of my vision, I caught movement in the text itself. Lines adjusting, shifting, like the words were breathing between refreshes. And then it started speaking about me in the present. Tense, you're sweating. You keep glancing at the corner of the screen, afraid you'll see a reflection. You won't. You won't, because it's not behind you. It's inside the words. Every instinct told me to shut the whole thing down. Hard. Reset. Wipe the drive if I had to. But another instinct, darker, kept me tethered. The story wasn't just describing me. It was waiting for me. I typed something in the comment box, hands shaking. Who are you? For a second, nothing. Then the cursor moved on its own, closer than your own voice. My pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't just a horror story. This was intrusion, collapse of boundary, fiction bleeding into the room where I sat. I tried to exit, but the close button pulsed gray, unclickable. The whole browser had locked to the story. My screen dimmed and brightened like breathing, and the next paragraph appeared. You think this is about the missing stories. It isn't. They're only the bait. The real story is you. The one no one else will find, because when you vanish, this is all that will remain. A half-loaded thread no one should have clicked. That broke me. I yanked the power cord, jammed the laptop shut, slammed the light off in the room. My chest was heaving. My skin felt electric. I stood in the dark, heart hammering, whispering, "Not real. Not real. It's just code." But then the lights flickered. Not just in my room, through the entire apartment. A rolling brownout surge, the kind that makes every appliance groan at once. And as the power strained, the laptop clicked back on. I hadn't touched it. The glow filled the room again, and there, against every rule of reality, the browser window remained open, restored in full. The story sat waiting for me. Now we can continue. After the reboot, nothing felt normal again. The story hadn't just stayed on my laptop, it had followed me off the screen. That night, when I finally forced myself to lie in bed, I heard it. A sound so soft, I almost convinced myself it was the apartment settling. A whisper sliding through the dark like a draft. Not words, not at first. Just the hush of syllables forming, collapsing, reforming again. I pulled the blanket tighter, stared at the ceiling, and tried to breathe steady. But then, clear as if someone bent down by my ear, I heard my name. I sat up so fast, the room tilted. The blinds shifted against the window pane. Nothing else moved. My phone buzzed beside me. I grabbed it like a lifeline, only to see a notification I couldn't make. Sense of message from deleted. That wasn't possible. Deleted accounts couldn't send messages. But when I opened the app, there it was. A A single line that vanished before I could screenshot it. "You're already in the story." I stared at the empty chat box, my hands cold. I wanted to believe it was some trick, maybe a cached DM glitch. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The whispers didn't stop. They followed me into the bathroom, where my reflection in the mirror seemed a second too slow, my mouth shaping words I hadn't spoken. The more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it grew. Shadows that should have stretched one way under the lamp leaned another, bending toward me. On the third night, I found a voicemail on my phone. No number, no timestamp. Just silence at first, then static, then, buried in the crackle, my name, drawn out, distorted, like it had been dragged through broken glass. I listened once, twice. By the third replay, the voice started adding words. "Don't fight it." I nearly threw the phone across the room. It was no longer confined to the digital world. Whatever force erased those stories was leaking into mine, turning my apartment into a cage. Every missing post I'd tracked before started to replay in my mind. Not as tales, but as warnings. A man who vanished after describing words crawling across his windows. A woman who insisted her phone kept ringing from her own number. Authors who'd posted half-finished stories before going silent forever. I thought they were just creepy hooks. Fiction. Now I understood. They weren't writing stories. They were leaving confessions. The reason those threads were gone wasn't because they broke rules. It was because they knew too much. They wrote too close to the thing that was hunting them. And now I'd read what I shouldn't. I wasn't just reading about paranoia anymore. I was living it. I stopped opening my curtains. I unplugged the laptop. I turned my phone face down. Nothing worked. The story had bled through, staining the air itself. At times I caught myself whispering words I didn't remember knowing. My notebook filled, with sentences I didn't recall writing, pages scrawled with fragments like, "Don't look away," and "Already inside." It wasn't me, it was it. The worst part? The dread wasn't just fear, it was certainty. That every step I took, every attempt to shut it out, was exactly what it wanted. That's when I realized other narrators had known. The missing posts weren't accidents. They weren't sloppy deletions or moderation wipes. They were people trying to bury their trail before the story consumed them. And the fact that I could still hear their echoes, the whispers, the voicemails, the shadows, meant I was already too far in. I couldn't stay passive. I needed to know how deep this went. So I did the one thing I swore I wouldn't. I opened the laptop again. And this time, I didn't just scroll Reddit. I dug deeper. The Wayback Machine, trying to scrape fragments of threads long erased. Discord, servers, dead links leading to leaks about cursed stories. Buried mentions on niche horror blogs where readers swore they'd seen posts that later vanished without a trace. Each fragment was the same, half-finished, corrupted, but threaded with the same warning. And through it all, one phrase kept appearing, scrawled like graffiti across the digital ruins. The story doesn't stop at the screen. I stared at those words, heart hammering, because I already knew they were true. The deeper I dug, the less I felt like a curious reader, and the more I felt like a trespasser. Every forum thread, every archived scrap of text, it was like stepping into a library where the books watched you back. I started noticing a pattern. Every missing post I tracked wasn't just gone. It was surgically removed. No cached copy, no screenshots, not even a whisper in old Discord discussions except for one consistent thread: the author. Each name I cross-referenced led to silence. Some accounts went dark overnight. Others left cryptic final comments, short goodbyes disguised as edits. One wrote, "I shouldn't have written it, forget me." Another, "The story is safer without me in it." And then, nothing. No more activity. Like they had stepped out of their lives the way their words had stepped off the page. I thought I was piecing together a conspiracy of obsessed fans or maybe moderators overreaching. But the more evidence I stacked, the more it felt coordinated, too exact, too deliberate. That's when I first saw the name. Not shouted, not advertised, but carved into margins of obscure paste bins and dead links like an afterthought. A single word: archivists. The word sent a chill through me. It carried weight, like something older than Reddit, older than the internet itself. A role, not just a name. Some posts suggested they were human moderators who cleaned up dangerous stories. Others hinted they weren't human at all, but AI programs, trained not to curate, but to contain. And some whispered that they were neither. That they were the very thing the stories described, reaching out with borrowed hands. The archivists didn't censor stories. They preserved them by locking them away, by erasing the authors who strayed too close to the truth. The more I uncovered, the more I realized I was threading a needle through history itself. There were parallels going back years, before NoSleep, before Reddit, old message boards, Usenet archives, even eerie photocopied zines. Every medium had stories that disappeared, their creators following not long after. And now my name was on their list. I could feel it. I didn't have to wait long for confirmation. One morning, I opened my inbox to find an email waiting. No subject, line, no sender, just an empty "from" field. For a second I thought it was spam, but then I read the body. "Do you want to join us, or do you want to be erased too?" My throat went dry. It wasn't a question. It was a verdict waiting to be delivered. I should have deleted it. Closed the laptop, walked away. But curiosity has teeth, and it sank them deep into me. I typed back, my fingers trembling. "Join who?" No reply. The email vanished before I hit refresh, as if it had never existed. That's when the line blurred completely. For years I thought horror was safe because it was storytelling. Words on a page, fiction. But the archivists had flipped the page over and showed me the ink bleeding through. The safety net was gone. I couldn't separate writing from living anymore. Every word felt like an invitation, every story a door that only opened one way. And the scariest part wasn't that the archivists existed, it was that they knew me. They'd reached into my inbox. They'd spoken directly. They'd made me a character in their archive. That night, I sat staring at my screen, whispering to myself like a prayer. It's just a story. It's just a story. It's just a story. But the words didn't land the way they used to. They felt hollow. Because if stories can be deleted, if storytellers can vanish, If something can crawl between fiction and reality to curate what we see, then maybe all of us are stories waiting to be filed. I wish I could tell you I stopped there, that I closed everything, burned the notes, and walked away. But you're still here, listening. You know I didn't. I kept pulling, kept digging, kept risking, because here's the part you need to understand. The archivists aren't just curators, they're watchers. They don't just erase stories, they monitor who reads them, who shares them, who remembers them. They're watching this too, right now. That email wasn't a glitch. It was a mark, a timestamp, proof that my words had crossed into their ledger. And maybe by hearing this, yours have too. I don't know how much longer I have before the choice comes back. Maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight, maybe the next whisper in my ear won't stop at my name. But if you've stayed with me this far, you deserve to know the truth. Not just about the archivists, not just about the missing posts, about the last missing story. The one they tried hardest to bury. The one that was never meant to resurface. The one I shouldn't say out loud. But if I'm already marked, if I'm already erased in their eyes, then maybe speaking it is the only way I stay real a little longer. So listen closely, because after this, I can't promise I'll still be here. I told myself I wouldn't read it, that it was safer to leave unopened, safer to let silence keep its teeth sheathed. But silence has weight, and weight crushes. The file sat on my desktop, like a vein pulsing beneath the skin. No title, no extension, just a blank icon. I double-clicked it anyway. The screen blinked. Text appeared. Slow, deliberate, like it was being typed by something that could see me. You're late. My stomach nodded. This wasn't a story meant to be read. It was a script waiting to be performed. I felt my voice catch in my throat as I whispered the words out loud, and then more lines scrolled in, each one sharper, hungrier. This isn't entertainment. This isn't fiction. This is the part where you lean closer, eyes straining against the glow of your screen. This is the part where you hear your own breathing, louder than you remembered. I should have stopped. I should have shut the laptop and walked out of the room. But the text pulled, each sentence a hook dragging deeper. The story described my room again. The chair, the exact way my blinds tilted, the faint hum of the fridge 2 rooms away. But then the text shifted. It wasn't just describing me anymore. It was describing you. Someone else is here now. Watching through your eyes. Listening with your ears. You shouldn't have clicked. You shouldn't have stayed this long. But you did. The words on the screen blurred and doubled. I felt dizzy, fevered, like the room itself had warped to fit the narrative. And then it gave an instruction. When this ends, you will check your notifications. You will find us there. I froze. A chill swept down my spine, settling in my fingertips. It wasn't hypothetical anymore. It wasn't about missing posts, vanished authors, or erased archives. It was about you, right now. The words dripped on, looping like a fever dream. Don't comment. Don't share. Don't speak of this outside these walls. Every time you retell it, we grow closer. Every time you try to warn someone else, they vanish too. The paragraphs began to cycle, repeating phrases with slight changes, as though testing which version of the story fit best. You are alone while reading this. You are not alone while reading this. You are safe while listening. You are marked while listening. I felt my breath stutter, matching the rhythm of the text. It wasn't just telling me a story anymore. It was sinking me to it. And then came the final line. It didn't appear instantly. The cursor blinked, waiting, daring me to anticipate. When it finally arrived, it was simple. Now, read this aloud, so they can hear it too. I heard my own voice tremble as I obeyed, speaking into the quiet, and I realized too late the trap wasn't in the file. It was in me. Because the moment I spoke it, the loop closed. You were included. The words weren't confined to my screen anymore. They'd spilled through yours. Maybe that's how the archivists do it. Not with deletion, not with erasure, but with expansion. By making the story realer every time it's read, every time it's heard. And now, it's on you. You know the warning. You felt it coil around your thoughts. You can choose to click away. Pretend none of this touched you. Or you can linger, replay, spread the infection like a whisper. Either way, the story doesn't end with me. It ends with you. The last words on my screen glitched, repeating until they collapsed into static. When this ends, you will check your notifications. You will find us there. You will find us there. You will find us. The audio in my room cracked. My speakers hissed. The sound of air being torn apart. My voice recorder picked up a hum, then silence. And then, nothing. Just static. If you don't hear from me again, you'll know why. I'm not saying this for drama, or for some cheap horror effect. I'm saying it because the archivists don't let their stories escape. They erase the storyteller. And right now, I think they've already decided my part is over. The file is gone from my laptop. Not deleted. Gone. My recycle bin is empty, my drive scrubbed clean. Yet when I close my eyes, I can still see the blinking cursor. Still hear that last line echoing. You will find us there. I don't know what happens after this upload finishes. Maybe this video disappears within hours. Maybe my account gets wiped. Maybe I do. So, if this is the last time you hear my voice, remember this. The stories that vanish aren't just fiction. They're warnings. And every missing line is a gap waiting to be filled by someone else. Maybe by you. Static flicker. Screen darkens. A final message burns in, written like a pinned comment no one can trace. Deleted user. It's your turn now. The screen holds on those words, stretching the silence until it feels unbearable. No credits, no outro music, just black. But before everything cuts, the narrator's voice breaks through one last time. Barely audible, distorted, fading. If you found your own name inside a missing NoSleep story, would you keep reading? Or would you run? The screen collapses into static, and in the last second, a whispered hook. Careful what you search tonight. Some stories are still looking back.